Hello, my name is Daniel Cook and I'm a creative specialist here at Foundry. In today's webinar, we are going to use some direct modeling techniques to create this welding machine. Once the meshes are built, we will rig them using locators and the schematic view. We will then animate them utilizing math nodes and noodles, add a particle system to simulate welding sparks, add animated lights to simulate welding flash, and finish with some basic texturing. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to add is a cubic. Now a cubic is normally used when we're using mesh fusion, but what it does give us is a very nice sub-D'd model to start with. Okay, so because our welding arm is a three-part object, we will use the same three parts. So we'll call this motor. And then we're going to duplicate. Boom. And we'll call this middle arm. And then we duplicate it again, and we'll call it welding arm. Cool. Then I'm just going to split them off. Okay, so first things first. Okay, so if we notice, the inner end is just slightly beveled in. As we saw on the little demo animation, we have a hole here where we are going to be able to view the motor. So I'm just going to use the geometry that I've already got. Get the bridge, and we'll put. Have we got enough in there? Yes, that looks pretty good. Okay. So I want to first of all put some, put some reinforcement at those edges. Let's make it. And then finally, because when I do that, it still looks a bit roundy-boundy, I'm going to put it's alright. Okay. So we'll come out of that. I'm going to bring in my middle arm, and I'm going to get it. I'm going to scale that so it fits in that little gap there. Again, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. That now, go back to that, and then we'll start dragging, pulling out polygons that we don't need. Boom. Come out of there, and I want to do. Pop in some edge reinforcements. Where are we? 90. Okay, so now we are going to create a couple of little holes just using the geometry. And just going to bridge those. Less polygons in, do that many. We do that one, and bridge again. So there we go. Right, let's get this middle arm in. So, use the same technique again. Do that, bevel it out. To line things up. Okay, so I did suspect that that might happen. Just harden off these two corners. That should give us a bit of clearance. Cool. Okay, so let's put in our, might as well while we're here, put our bearing in. Just adds a little bit of something, doesn't it? We get a sub D, it looks a bit juicy, so let's put some reinforcement in. Let's concentrate on the middle arm. So, what we're going to do now is we're going to split this off. Let's do, let me think if I'm leaving a gap. One there, one there, one there, one there. That should do us. Get these verts. Skip one, skip one, skip one. Just a little bit of movement on the top of there. I'll just reverse that. I'm going to ease it in and then just going to give it a little bit of an arch. So, cool. Now, welding arm. Okay, so okay, so I think we're done with the major part of the modelling now. There are some things that we will catch up with at the end, including these and duplicating them and whatnot. So now we're going to actually start putting in some locators so then I can animate all the pieces. So I'm going to just go over to the Setup tab. And we will do something quite cool. So I'm going to loop that. Then I'm going to go up to my work plane and I'm going to align work plane to selection. And nothing's happened because you can't see the work plane, but I know that it's now centered in there. So I shall add a locator. which has gone there, and then, and this is the reason why I reset the work plane, I'm going to set that right into the center of the object. Except I'm going to move it out like that. Bring the motor housing and the motor back in just so I know it's cleared, and I'm going to change the shape to a custom shape, and I'm going to choose circle, and I want that to align, I believe, oops, on X. Name this rotor look, and then we are going to do the next one. So that's good. So now I'm going to start attaching things to my locators. So my inner, I'm going to drag it, wait for the menu to pop up, and then parent that in place. And again, I'm going to drag, parent in place, and drag, parent in place. Okay. So each one of those locators is now directly controlling the bearing and the motor. Now this whole section will never move, it's only this part that will spin, so I don't really need to bind all of these bits together. But what I do need to do is I need to bind this to the bearing. So parent that in place, that to be bonded to there, I want that to be bonded to there, so I'll make sure that that's bonded. Okay, what we're going to do now is, because this is attached to a moving object, and this object in relation to it doesn't move, I want to be able to make that react to it, so it'll stretch it a little bit. So the first thing I need to do is go to my UV maps and make sure that that has a UV map. So there we go, it has definitely got UV map, so that's cool. We're going to go back to the main window, and I am going to choose UV to weight map. Just put me in weight map mode, but I don't want that. So there we can see that the map is stronger here and then fades back to here. So what I need to do now is add a locator to the end of this pipe. And we're going to do that by right-clicking under Vertex Maps, right-clicking on Texture to Weight, add Transform Effector. And there it is. Okay, so now I'm going to move that to align it with my electrical cable. But I need to do this in setup mode, otherwise it will move the pipe, which we don't want. Okay, so I'll drop the move tool, and then I'm going to link the effector to the object, and then come out of setup mode. Now, when I move this up and down, it moves with it, which is superb. Now once we've got these in place, we have to do one more little step. So if you bring up your extra little window here, make sure that you're looking at mesh operations. I'm going to highlight both of these, right click and normalize. Now what that does is when we then move our animation, okay, so now that's set up, what we're going to do is we're going to simply duplicate. have got dynamic electronic pipes. Perfect. Quick save. Okay, so what we need to do now before we start animating is open up our schematic view. First thing I need to do is drag in each of the items that I want to animate. So just simply drag and drop these three elements. Okay, and then because I'm going to be animating the x-axis rotation of this, I want to drag in and drop on top of my node. Now I want to start feeding these things into the next thing in the row. So now I've got the first one set up with my rotation on X. I need to do the same thing for these. So I shall bring in rotation Z on that one, and then we'll bring in rotation Z on that one. We drop these down, open them up. I can then feed that rotation into there and that rotation into there. When we've got that one highlighted, I revolve on X, it then manipulates the other two. Brilliant. But it's not going in the right direction. And I also want the motor to spin more times to make the rest of it move. So I'm going to disconnect these nodes, and I'm going to add a math node, and I'm going to use divide. So I should put a math node divide in there, and I feed that part there, and that part there, and then I go into the value. If I change this value to, let's say, 5, then it's going to divide anything that comes into it by 5 and then send it to rotation Z. So let's try that. So it now spins more times in relation. We can, of course, increase that. Let's change that to 10, see what happens. So now if you can see, it's moving many times, which is more like what a motor will do. Okay, so now I want to take that rotation that's going into there and I want it to manipulate the arm. Now, the difference is, because I want that arm to remain perpendicular, I need to use another math node. And we will do divide again. We'll plug that in. This time, I'm going to change this to -1. So in theory, when we manipulate that, it counteracts it and keeps it perpendicular, which is absolutely wonderful. So one of the things that we want to do is prevent our little model from going that way and also going all the way back and clipping through itself. So we can put in a little procedure, a little node that will prevent that. It's called a clamp. Like so. And now I'm going to tell it what I want it to do. So 0 is fine, and on the max I'd like it to go -90. So now when I go that way it should stop, and when I get up to 90 it also stops. It just prevents it. So now we've got that in place, what we want to do is animate it. So set your frames to 480. That will give us about 16 seconds worth of animation. I want a little bit more control over this though, so let's bring in the graph editor. So there's my motion. Now we are going to animate our welding head, which is this item here, and everything else should be attached to it, which it is. So from 108 I am going to add a position keyframe on the Y, but if you notice all these figures have already got numbers in them, so I don't really want, so I'm going to, oops, no I'm not, I'm going to 0 all of them. Okay, so let's have a keyframe on there, move it forward a few frames, we will drop a keyframe in and then get it to come, oops, no it's not on X, it's on Y you fool. So let's play that and see what that looks like. Pretty good. So now we've got that in place, we want to be able to simulate an actual welding action. So before we do that, we are going to need something for it to interact with. So I've got a blank mesh item here, and I'm just going to create something that sits underneath the welders, like so. Okay, so I'm going to drag in my radial emitter, particle simulator, already joined. Put that down there. Okay, so now I want to add a static to my work. So I'll drag my work in. Let's jump in on there. I want to do the same with that one and put a static on there as well. This should be joined in. Add in a dynamics collider. Put that in there, like so. Gravity on Y. Minimum age 20. Let's make that 15. And then we will run the simulation. Okay, so now, see those particles are bouncing? Cool, it's just what we want. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is I want to give these particles some sort of form. So I'm going to add in a replicator. Add item, replicator. Drag that in there like so. We'll feed our sim into it. And then we need to create a source for the replicator. So I shall do that now. New mesh item. We will call this Sparks, but not with a capital. Sparks, and for Sparks I'm going to create a and then I'm going to drag that in there. I'm going to connect that to prototype. So now I just want to animate the actual particle launch. So at that point there I want that to be 50, and before it to be 0. And I'll go all the way back there, make sure that's 0. Come up, Okay, so now I've got the replicator set up and I've got my point set up and everything else. They're all going to come out of here at the exact point that I want them to come out. I now need to just add a little bit of randomness. And bear in mind my particle source is just too big at the moment. But I want to put in some randomness. So I'm just going to add in some random. Alright, so I'm now going to duplicate our dynamics. Okay, so now I've got my particle set up. What I want to do is I want to change the particle color over time. Welding sparks tend to start out quite white, bluey white, and then obviously fade as they cool down. It's a very, very quick process, but we'd like to try and emulate that. So let's drag in our material, which is there. I am going to add luminous color. Should have that there. And now I'm going to add a gradient. So let's go to there. Let's add. I'll tell you what. Let's just add a gradient. Which is there. And I want to use these three. So I will plug them in. Red, green, and blue. Now we have a gradient, which is these, I believe. Okay, so we'll move that down to, let's see, let's move over to a more yellowy colour. Ready colour. And then finally, what I want to do is I want to move my sparks material above the base shader, and I want to add its own shader. The reason being is because I don't want it to cast or receive shadows. So the last thing I want to add is some point lights to emulate or simulate the flash of the arc welder. So let's go to add item. We'll pick a point light. Look at our preview. Preview's lighting up. What I want to do is change the color of it. I want to make it just ever so slightly into the blue. And I'm going to just drop down the intensity to 1. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, that looks okay. That looks okay. And I'm going to duplicate each of those and then so I've got everything set up just about how I want it, and now we're going to get not particularly creative, but we are going to add in texture, and then we're going to add a occlusion map. I'm going to set that to multiply, and I'm going to set that to concave convex. It just pops out any of the little details that we've got without having to go too deeply into texturing. Okay, so that'll do for those. All right, let's texture up some of these other things. Take away all of that. Put that to 50. Take away the roughness down to, say, 10. Should get a metallic. Okay, so what I want to do now is I just want to add in a few more little items. Once that is all set, I can go to render and then a render animation. And that concludes today's webinar. Thank you very much for watching.